Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's or this month's Evolve webinar, the first of 2026. And what a great topic we have lined up for you today. I'm Rob Evely. I'm chair of the Evolve community, which is the community for in-house association event professionals. Today's session will be recorded. Please do use the chat for any comments or the Q&A to ask the panel any questions too. We do encourage questions. The webinar is much better if our panel of experts is led by you rather than what we think you want to know. So what are we talking about today? Exhibitor ROI. How do we prove the value of exhibiting to potential exhibitors? A significant amount of work that we do at Brighthelm is around commercial growth for associations, and exhibitor sales forms a large part of that. More and more, we're hearing that marketing budget holders are preferring to invest in marketing activities that give more easily measurable returns, such as digital advertising, often to the detriment of trade shows or conferences with exhibitions. This is a potential threat to conference income. So, what can we do about it? And how can we help exhibitors prove ROI? Let's find out. We've brought together a panel of experts who I will introduce you to very, very shortly. However, firstly, we have, as usual, two quick polls, which, John, if you wouldn't mind popping up those now. The first question is, to what extent do you agree with the following statement? I'm on it when it comes to exhibitor ROI. And the second question, to what extent do you provide post-event reporting to exhibitors? The poll will be running whilst we do the introductions of our panelists, which I'll come on to now. But please do contribute to that. We'll come back to review that shortly. So first off the start, I'd like to welcome Fiona Chappell. Fiona leads Melbourne Convention Bureau's engagement across Europe from its London office. She works closely with international associations and leads sales and marketing activity across Europe. Prior to joining Melbourne, Fiona was head of sales for Reed's Travel Exhibitions Meetings portfolio, and someone who I'm pleased to say I've known for at least a couple of decades, I think. So it's a pleasure to be working with you, Fiona. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Rob, and good morning, everyone. Yeah, as Rob has said, my current position is Director of Business Development for EMEA, and in for the Melbourne Convention Bureau, and in that role, exhibitions is a primary tool for us to reach out and engage with our community and clients, potential clients, colleagues. Yeah.
And well, thank you, Fiona. So I have a question for you. As an exhibitor with, let's face it, significant spend when you're talking about these large exhibitions such as IBTM and the like, how do you approach return on investment?
So it became apparent probably about 7 years ago that we weren't really tracking very well our results from exhibitions. And as you quite rightly point out, it's a significant chunk of our marketing spend and our annual budgets in attending trade shows. So what we decided to do was to embark on the ROI methodology route. So I spent some time doing a course on the ROI methodology, and we've been implementing that through various actions. So through our CRM system, and setting some very key objectives for what we want to achieve out of a specific event. And that is obviously advancing leads down our sales pipeline, but also activities around the trade show. So be that client entertainment, interaction with media, taking part in panels, general elevation of Melbourne's profile within the meetings community.
Thank you. And it's incredibly difficult. I mean, the I remember in back when I started doing trade shows as a really young sales exec at like Confex, and your measure would be inquiries on the stand. Um, in the business we're in, and particularly with association meetings, those lead times are so long. It's really not possible to say a month if your finance director comes to you and says, "Okay, did we achieve ROI in that event or not?" It's impossible to say at that point because you might not know what the results are until years afterwards. But thank you for that intro, Fiona. Our next guest, Jack Soward, is no stranger to exhibitions. He's the owner of Soward Marketing and Events. Sorry about that. Who and focuses on international trade shows, high-profile sporting championships, corporate conferences, and virtual gatherings. And he has specific experience in exhibition design and training. Jack also co-hosts the Events Insight podcast. Go and check it out. Loves connecting with people and offers what one customer described, and I love this, as a professional cuddle. That's brilliant. Thanks for joining us, Jack. Um, how do you plan exhibitor activity that allows for measurement?
Yeah, thanks for inviting us to be part of the group. And in a quick answer to your question, though, I would say you have to challenge your clients from the very onset. You know,
Mhm.
what are they hoping to achieve? And we actually break it down further than just our ROI. I'm going to use two other phrases and I'll explain them. One's ROO and one's ROE. And to explain those to people, ROO to me is return on objectives. So a little bit what you were touching on there in terms of how many people did you talk to? You know, how many people downloaded a document that you might have on the graphics of a wall? You know, so the softer outcome focused ones. And we think also the importance of ROE, which is return on experience. Now that sounds soft in nature, and how do you track it? But believe me, if you get people to feel great when they visited you, if you get people to really believe in what the message that you're saying, all of that will contribute to your targets around return on investment. If you don't get those softer targets right, it will have a negative impact in terms of your return on investment. So we try and break it down into those three areas when we're having the conversations. How do you want people to feel when they come to you at the show? What are your soft outcomes in terms of those that you can measure? You can measure daily. You can even measure by lunchtime. Some of the good events out there now actually track via badges in terms of people's movements around a show. Where's the lag time? Which area in your stand is actually getting a lot of presence and which area is quite quiet? Using that intelligence to even adapt during an event is important. And then, as I say, that all contributes then to the long term in terms of has the investment that you have made been worthwhile in terms of the longer picture for your organization.
Thanks, Jack. That's very good insight. And I like the measure. I like the idea of moving on from ROI into different measures, like you've described there. Um, our third and final panelist, Jack Marcheski, portfolio event director for North Star Travel Group, which includes the meeting show. Originally from a publishing sales background, Jack has been involved in the meeting show for 11 years, rising up to the ranks to leading strategy for the event in the UK. One of Jack's passions is using the show as a sandbox for ideas for the events industry, which I love that idea. And I'm hoping he's going to give us a couple of examples of that today. Welcome, Jack. Thanks for joining us. And just for simplicity, we're going to be referring to Jack S and Jack M today, just because we've never had two Jacks on a webinar before. In fact, next month we've got two Johns as well, so we'll have to do something similar there. Thank you, Jack M, for joining. So, from your perspective as a trade show organizer, what have you put in place for exhibitor reporting?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think it's a really tricky question in terms of reporting because of how ROI is kind of developing over the years. I think, as Fiona and Jack have kind of said, it's very much value over number of leads now, over volume. So we've kind of had to adapt how we engage our exhibitors and bring them along on the journey from when they, as Jack again said, initially signed to come to the show and start thinking about exhibiting to post-show and how they're going to follow up those leads. So for us, it's very much an education process for our sales team to be very consultative in that process. Event attendees, there's a growing trend of wanting hyper personalization for events, and that is filtering through into the exhibitors as well. Everyone has different objectives, everyone has different needs. So for us as an organizer, it's from the get-go understanding what that is, understanding how they're measuring ROI, understanding how they need to report it up to the purse string holders, and ensuring that we provide enough data, enough opportunity with them, and enough kind of information that they need to be able to do that. So it's been quite a process in doing that over a number of years. But as we all know, events are getting a lot more expensive. Budgets are getting a lot smaller, so we need to be able to justify them. So the measurement aspect of it is really crucial, and it's not like a one size fits all anymore. It's very much a very personalized experience for all exhibitors.
And how, just out of interest, how do you then all that data, or do you have a way of pulling all that data together? So as a director, as a show owner, you is there any intelligence gathering you do with that data? I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Yes, so we're quite lucky with the meeting show. It's a hosted buyer-led event, so we ask nearly every single bit of information about a buyer when they attend our event, because we put quite a bit of investment into bringing them to the UK. So luckily, we have a huge data set there. We have a big indication of budgets of where their events they're looking to plan in the coming years, and down the line as well. So we can share that and manipulate that and give that to people in any way that they need, really. Obviously, with ensuring that it's all kind of GDPR compliant, but we've got a lot of stats and data year on year to kind of say what the expected ROI should be, and people can kind of measure against that as well. So again, it's very much understanding how people are measuring, and fitting what we offer into that.
Great, thank you very much. We're going to pop and have a look at our poll results and ask the panel to comment on those in a moment. But a quick reminder to the audience, please, to do ask questions of us. We are here to help, and the webinar is made better, made much improved by your contributions. So looking at the first poll quizzes, to what extent do you agree with the following statement? I'm on it when it comes to exhibitor ROI. So no one is strongly agreeing there. It looks like the vast majority are in the middle somewhere. Jack, how does that Jack M, how does that compare with kind of what you see in event owner behavior in terms of, I guess, the tools which are available to you to help track ROI?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good reflection uh, of our group of exhibitors that we have, and across the board. I think what you see is people that are very on it with measuring ROI and have clear plans and structures and are openly communicative with us as the organisers and what they need to be able to justify that. And as you said, it's not just a year on year, or Fiona said, sorry, it's not just a 1 year thing. It's this could be multiple years down the line. So we see a huge correlation in people that rebook quickly and see the shows as a valuable opportunity for them. There's a huge correlation between people that are active in the ROI measurement and those that aren't, and some people kind of dabble in it. But I think one thing with ROI is it is such a complicated process that you really need to commit to doing it. And once you kind of take that first step of taking putting a clear structure, clear plan around it, clear communication with all aspects of your company, then you'll start to see the benefits and actually be able to measure it. It's not a short term thing that you can do. You need to be able to measure year on year. You need to be able to compare like for like. So it is a much wider conversation within your company to put the practice into place to be able to measure that.
Thanks. And Jack S. From your perspective, and bear in mind that most of the audience here are either selling sponsorship and exhibition opportunities for their conferences, or they're running the whole conferences, setting them up, even maybe responsible for the strategy. In your experience, how good are event owners at setting up for successful measurement of exhibitors, but for all the jobs you see? And what would be the one, I guess, if there were one or two most important things which event owners could do to facilitate this, what would it be?
I'll be controversial in the first comment then.
Okay, go
In
on.
terms of exhibitors and my clients say, we're not stupid. Why do exhibition owners think we are? And this is quite historical. And
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
quite
yeah.
historical. And I'll explain my answer in terms of when people start giving figures, numbers, how many people came, they don't care. In true honesty, they don't. They want to understand that they're getting the right quality through the door.
Hmm.
They would rather speak to someone for half an hour and it be the right person than have 15 people step onto the stand and be the wrong person. The old comment in terms of tire kickers, because they will then miss the opportunity to speak to that one person who was the person they needed to speak to. So I think a lot more of organisers are now being far more transparent and clear in terms of who they are targeting. I've even seen some shows that have been really good in terms of cleaning attendees. In other words, those organizations that they would have ideally liked to have as an exhibitor, but actually they're a competitor to one of the exhibitors and they haven't invested that money. They've just decided to come as a visitor and watch who's walking on their competitor's stand and actually go and grab them and take them for a coffee. So a lot of organizers are getting really good at cleaning and ensuring that the visitors are buyers. They're not competitors to other exhibitors. And as I say, being really transparent in terms of the quality and numbers that are coming through the door, because we've all been at events where we can see where there's been low numbers or where there's been exhaustive high numbers. So I think that transparency and communication with exhibitors is crucial.
Thank you. And um, Fiona, in your experience as an exhibitor too, and bearing in mind, obviously you're exhibiting exclusively within the events industry. Are um are trade show organizing the events industry embracing measurement, and are they supporting your objectives? Are they even interested in them?
Yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with what Jack S has just said, in as much as you know, I don't want to see at the end of the show record-breaking visitor numbers. I don't want to see that, because and it's the old adage, trade show organisers do it all the time. Um, I want quality, and I want specific sectors, and I think it's um yeah, I would rather, as I said, have fewer appointments but more meaningful appointments than somebody who comes onto the stand and says, "Oh, well, um, tell me about Melbourne." I don't want to sit there really necessarily and tell them all about Melbourne. And then what happens is, 9 times out of 10 with those people, or even 10 times out of 10, you do your follow up and it's just like tumbleweed out there, that you get no feedback, you get nothing back. I would like to see specific sectors targeted more. So rather than going on the broad brush agency, um, from around Europe, more targeted association sectors. That is a key. That's key to my business objectives. So I would like to see a lot more of that.
That's really interesting, and that's something now which most organisers should be able to do with the data they want, with the data they have. And there's a cut. I've had a few conversations recently with a request for exhibitor delegate matching. So those delegates that are attending a conference who match exactly what the customer profile which the exhibitors are looking for. And actually, most exhibitors are really good at understanding who their target audience is. And I think, like you say, Jack, you've got to really fight. You've got to fight to find those people sometimes if there are too many people there. Jack, yes.
It's a very quick follow-up in terms of we're finding a lot more events that are now combining, the smaller shows that are combining into larger shows, but with their own demographic in terms of exhibitors. The other thing to say is make sure when we are giving information about the representation of people coming, who have they come to see? Which part of that show have they come to see? So there's no point in saying 20,000 people come through the door if there's only 3,000 that have come through the door for that part of the event.
Yeah.
Because again, it just fits into terms of that transparency, and it's something that I've seen handled well and handled poorly.
And actually, just looking at the second poll there, to what extent you provide post-event reporting to exhibitors? So some do, 75 or three-quarters of the audience do a little, none do a lot, and 25% do none at all at the moment. So perhaps that's an opportunity, members of the audience, to think about what you can easily share. We have our first audience question. So thank you for the question. Do you have any tips for encouraging attendees to visit the stands? We give tips to exhibitors. For example, make your stand inviting, be approachable, and put stands near refreshments. But what can you do when conference attendees don't go and engage with sponsors or exhibitors? Um, so who would like a go at that? Jack M.
I'm happy to go first on that. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we always, as organisers, talk about training exhibitors and getting the most out of stands and doing all this kind of stuff. But actually, there's a huge market for training your attendee and getting them to understand how to interact with your event in a way that is going to be most beneficial for them. Every event is very different, but I think it's really key to kind of educate those attendees in how and frame it in how they're going to get the most out of their show in their attendance. We have, again, through our kind of surveys and everything, we know what people's main objectives are from an attendee point of view. All of the time for our trade shows, it is sourcing new suppliers. Obviously, that will vary to a conference where sometimes, the time to visit an exhibitor is during a break in content, and people might just want to have a coffee or to have a bit of a relax or check some emails. But I think it's about educating attendees. We have started doing with all of our shows webinars to kind of know the show, get the most out of the show, to highlight some of the exhibitors that we've got, and also how to talk to them, how to engage with business. So they're not coming on talking to Fiona and just saying, "Tell me about Melbourne." They're actually coming prepared with questions. So everyone's got no time. The point of events is that it takes a lot of that time-consuming small emails out of it, and you can actually talk to someone face to face and have a business conversation. So that's really key. But then also another aspect of that is just the technology you're using, and really understand what the capabilities of that technology are. So whether it has matchmaking, again, being hosted by a show, we have pre-scheduled appointments, but there's so much that technology is doing, particularly with AI now in terms of creating these environments for people to meet before your show or to connect people that have similar interests. It's really key as an organizer to understand how you can do that, and kind of put your efforts towards that, because technology providers love to sing and shout about their particular shiny new product that they've got, but you need to understand what your core is and what you're trying to achieve so that you can make sure that technology supports that.
Thank you. Jack S, you look like you might have something to comment on that?
I was smiling at it because it's one of our first conversations. I always say to clients, you can give me £10,000 or £100,000 to make an intentional exhibition
Mm.
space for you. But if you haven't designed it well and you haven't got the right people going to manage that space, there's no point in going. So what I mean by that is make for sure it's intentional. Every design is intentional. Every use of technology that Jack's just said there has a purpose to being there, because sometimes if it's not, it's confusing. Space is important. People pay so much for space and then they try and fill it. And actually, all that means is people don't feel comfortable entering the space and having those conversations. But as I say, the biggest one for me is, who are you staffing it with? You could have the best possible salesman in the world who is comfortable going into someone's office and having a conversation, but cannot manage an exhibition space. So spend the time to decide who you're sending, why you're sending them, and have they got the right skills to manage that space. We had a brief conversation the other day, didn't we, Robin? And I said, why not? I'd use the name Mary, who's your receptionist at work, who answers all your calls, who's spoken to every one of your customers, who knows how to meet and greet people. Why aren't they part of the space? Because they'll be the first welcome face to embrace people into the stand and get them talking to the right possible salesman. So have a think in terms of how you can help advise your clients, your exhibitors, about how they can get the most out of their space and be intentional with it.
Thank you. There were a couple of things I was making notes of. Um, and I think we obviously need to think about, within the context, most of the people on the webinar today, the exhibition is part of a conference. And when delegates to go to conferences, they go with the mindset of learning. They don't necessarily go with the mindset of networking and buying. And there's if there was any other proof needed, it was when we went into lockdown and we started doing online porting to online conferences, and suddenly nobody was visiting the online exhibition stands who was attending a conference, because actually, frankly, they weren't that interested and they didn't have their buying mindset on. If you're going to a trade show, you are going to buy, you are going to find out. So that's the first thing. Secondly, there's nothing wrong with us as event organizers as using technology to suggest meetings to delegates, based on your preferences and what we know about you in our CRM, for example. We would recommend that when you're at the conference, you meet with this company, this company, this company. But I would also just also put it back to your exhibitors too. They need to make, as Jack S was saying, they need to make their stands interesting. I was at events industry trade show in, I think it was October or November, in Birmingham, and I'm pleased to see my dinner guest for that evening is in the audience today. And I mentioned how sometimes exhibitors don't help themselves because they're not even mentioning the basic the basic USPs of their product on their stand. They're not helping themselves. And when we talk about creating an interesting stand, it's got to be obvious what exhibitors do. And some of them really do need help with that. Lovely. We have another question. What would you say, from Laura Briglione? I hope that's Briglione. Oh, I'm so sorry, Laura. Just say Laura. What would you say are the three things every exhibitor needs to have put in place to make sure they get attendees to talk to them during breaks? Fiona, I'm going to come to you first on that. The three things every exhibitor needs to have to put in place to make sure they get in attendees to talk to them. I guess that's a wider thing there, isn't there, about
Yeah.
getting the right attendees to engage with you in the first place.
So I do think that a lot of work on exhibiting is actually done pre-event. So it's the reach out using the tools that organisers give us. I think my experience of exhibiting probably doesn't fit into that particular category, because the trade shows that I attend all have hosted buyer-led programs. So a lot of that work and the meetings that you are having, they are already set for you. So, but I have been in a position whereby, albeit something like delegate boosting or lobbying, bid presentation lobbying, whereby we've had a stand to be able to talk to delegates and influence their voting on at the General Assembly, and it's not easy. It's not easy, but I think a lot of it comes down to what Jack S said, is having, not sitting on the stand and sitting with your head in a laptop or doing your emails or on the telephone. You're there to you're there as an exhibitor to engage with the attendees. So you do have to put yourself a little bit out there, and you do have to walk onto the corridor, speak to people, smile at people, even, sort of activations work quite well. So if you're doing a prize draw, although then you get into the realms of, are you actually getting the right people on the stands, or are you getting the people who are just there for freebies? We do a nice line on clip-on koalas, which again, but I have actually stopped that practice. Number one, it's not sustainable, but number two, again, you just get bombarded with people who want 94 clip-on koalas for their numerous grandchildren, and they're not really the people you want to engage with. I would say that 90% of your success comes from what you do pre being on the show floor. Making those meetings, setting them up in advance, reaching out to the delegate list, going through the delegate list, seeing who you particularly want to see, and, reaching out before and setting something up if it's not a hosted buyer-led program. On a hosted buyer-led program, that there are tools that you can use, sort of, based on your profile. And that's the other thing, is exhibitors need to pay more attention to what they're putting up on their exhibiting online portal. They need to make sure that that's current, it's all complete. Recently attended a trade show, and I was very pleased with the support I was getting, because people, I was getting regular phone calls from the Philippines. It didn't really help that one of them was at 4 o'clock in the morning. But, saying, why don't you look at tweaking this, tweaking that? And I thought it was all very good, useful information. But I did have to tell her I wasn't in Australia, I was in London. But yeah. But yeah, I mean, I do believe that 90% of the of your success at an exhibition is the pre-work at an exhibition, and also just being open.
Thank you. I think advanced work is very, very important. Knowing who's coming, and I would say where possible. I know from an association's perspective, there is a reticence about sharing data, and in some instances, you can't share data because you don't have permission to. But even if you were just able to share names and companies with exhibitors and sponsors as soon as possible, that helps them become more successful. One, they're able to identify which of their existing clients are coming, and exhibitors do like to meet existing clients, but it's a great conversion of a conference. An industry conference is a great conversion opportunity too, for someone who maybe you've been talking to online or has had a previous inquiry, using the opportunity to engage with them in person, shake their hand if you like, and actually strike up a conversation and make that experience more human. And for me, that's one of the biggest differentiators between what I was saying at the beginning, digital advertising, and the ability to have direct results from that, and the human value of actually meeting someone, which makes your brand more personable. And that's something which can't be replaced. Jack S.
I'll give three very quick wins when it comes to design and engagement. First one is furniture. We touched on it there. In terms of choose furniture intentionally. If you've got soft sofas, you're further away and you're further down. If you've got a stool, your foot's already on the ground to step out and meet someone. Next one is floor choice. Everyone's walked off a stand and got the phone out and started looking at the phone straight away, and the head goes down. We often say, find out what the shell scheme carpet is and make sure you choose something different, because automatically, as your head's down, you notice a different color subconsciously. Your head lifts up because you're noticing something subconsciously different. And the third one is information. Don't give all of your information, but I can get all of your information from stood in the aisleway. Again, go back to design with intent, leading questions. So oh, I've been reading about this. Can you tell me more? Leave something where they have to ask you a question. So in too many stands where there's so much content on the stand in terms of copy and facts and figures, why do I need to talk to you? You've told me everything anyway. So just think about those three things.
It's a fine line, I think, isn't it? It's hard to find that happy middle ground where you've got not got too much information, but also you have enough information for someone to strike up a conversation with you in the first instance. Thank you very much for that question, Laura. We have a fan for Jack S in the questions from Caroline Hembury. Big hello to Jack S. We went to school together rather a long time ago, and it's great to see him on screen. She does have a question too. Thanks, Caroline. I'm responsible for smaller conferences with tabletop exhibitors. What strategies have you seen work best for tabletop sponsors to drive genuine engagement and ROI where attendees value substance over promotion? And I'm in a change to what I normally do. I'm going to go first on this actually, because as a business, Brighthelm, when we exhibit at conferences, we have a tabletop stand, and we run events, and it's very clear what our services are. But actually, what we find is actually to start getting that conversation started, getting people just to stop and talk to us is actually what our main objective, because it opens up a conversation, and then from that conversation we can identify if there are opportunities. What we've done the last two shows we've done, and what we're doing for the rest of this year is we're running Play Your Cards Right on our stand. Which is a night, for those that don't know, because there will be some of you that don't remember, Play Your Cards Right was a 1980s and 1990s game show hosted by the legendary Bruce Forsyth, which was basically you had to guess whether the next card along a series of 6 or 7 cards was going to be higher or lower. And so we went down the route of having fun. If you can get people to, if you encourage delegates to have fun and enjoy themselves, and I've seen it with my own, they just relax and they start telling you about their events business. You don't even have to ask questions because they know having had the game and having had some fun, they are relaxed. They're more than happy to share information with you, even if that's, I've played the game, I don't really have anything for you. It's not a problem for me because actually I enjoy playing the game too. So there's fun in it for me. But anything which you can just get someone to relax and enjoy themselves whilst interacting with you is just brings the best engagement and for me the best return on investment. Jack, as this starts with you, and the shout out from Caroline. It is a bit of a problem because actually when we've got tabletop exhibitions, there's a limited space in what we can do. It's also limited into quite often the exhibitors are quite limited in terms of budget too. So there's no builds here. Have you seen any great strategies for kind of driving engagement for those smaller stands?
I'm actually typing it because I didn't want to take over an answer to every question, but I'll say what I've just written. Quite often in these, an exhibitor may come with a pop-up stand. And let's say quite often it's a trestle table with a tablecloth over the top. Automatically, you're creating a barrier between you and your audience, your engagement. You're also hiding half of your pop-up banner's content. So my first question would be to challenge them in terms of, do you need the table? Because if you don't need the table and you can just have a couple of stools sat in front of your pop-up banner, you're automatically engaging with people more effectively. So have a consideration in terms of that. You may be able to have all your giveaways if you brought some just stood behind your barrier. and just have a few readily available, or have a small coffee table type size height table instead of a big trestle table in front. I find that automatically allows you to engage with people passing by, and they don't feel as though they have a barrier in front of them to engagement. So that would be one of my hints.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to we're at 10 past, so we're going to go to some slides, and I'm going to come back to the panel for some wrapping up thoughts. If we could have the slides, please, John. That's great, thank you. So what is Evolve? For those that don't know, we are a community for those professionals that are involved in the delivery of events within membership organizations. That might be an event manager, head of events, or even a chief executive. That is part of their role. We run around 16 events a year, 12 webinars, monthly webinar, always the third Thursday of the month, 2 live meetings, I'll come on to talk about those shortly, and 2 socials. We have some future developments coming on, a free subscription, online engagement opportunities such as the forum, mentorship programs, jobs, and really just about creating a greater sense of community around those people that often work in isolation within organizations. Next slide, please. The big thing today is Evolve Live, our in-person conference. Registered is next Friday at Excel London. The program is brilliant. You can click on the QR code there. It is written for you, but registration closes at 11:59 p.m. tonight. So you have less than 12 hours to get your registrations confirmed for that. It's going to be a great day. There's a great, ready in-depth program there, and it's going to be a lot of fun too. The big emphasis on connection, content, and career at this event. Those are our three buzzwords. Three focus words. And then our next webinar will be the 19th of February. What's next in event tech, and how much of it really matters. And if you want to find out any more about or engage with any of our speakers today, they are waiting to hear from you. Next slide, please. You can click on this QR code, and it will go straight to the event page from today's webinar. And on there are links to their resources. Please do engage with them. They do this as part of their jobs, and we like to try and bring ROI back to our speakers and participants too. We've got 2 minutes left, so I'm going to come to the panel for kind of final 20 seconds top thoughts that you want to leave the audience with today. Fiona.
Yeah, so I mean, my advice would be, if what's the saying? Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. So
Yes.
it's all in the before attendance, in my opinion, and also in your presentation when you're actually on site.
Great, thank you. Jack S.
I would say you are their critical friend. Don't just be their yes man. Put yourself in a position that you do challenge them, and do it from a good grounded place. Don't promise what you can't deliver. If you don't know the answers, make sure you find someone who can and get that information to them.
Thank you. Jack M.
Yeah, from an organizer point of view, I suppose organizers don't have to calculate the ROI for exhibitors, but they do need to give them the clarity, the data, and structure to prove it for themselves. So that's really crucial from an organizer point of view.
Thank you. And I guess my parting thoughts to 2 things really is that it's okay to start from somewhere. Don't think about trying to do everything all at once, particularly because we recognize that a lot of you are on your own working on events in associations. A lot of you don't have teams. So start with something. Start with sharing what data you can. And as Jack M just said, don't hide away from your data. Be honest with it. And also, I think just coming back to there's a few questions we didn't get to answer, but one of the questions was about education piece, and it is an education piece. The price of delegate tickets are subsidized by sponsor and exhibitor sales. If you have no sponsor and exhibitor sales, if they don't come back, the price is only going to go up. So it is worthwhile and absolutely fundamentally support any sort of communications or reminders you can do both in advance of the event and during the event itself to visit the sponsors, interact with their exhibitors, and make it really clear that they are there. They help reduce the cost of the ticket price. I've been Rob Everley. I'm 1 minute over. Fine for this once. Thank you so much for attending. Please do come to Evolve Live next Friday. It's going to be an amazing day, full of all sorts of fun and games, as well as amazing content. We will see you there, and if not, at a future Evolve event. Thank you very much.